years. And yeah, I think this is now the fifth cohort I've been a mentor in, which is pretty wild. Um, Time flies by extra fast in the NFT world, as we all know. But anyway, yeah, I'll get into it. I'll do a little bit of an intro on myself, and then I think this should be pretty open. It's an AMA. You can feel free to message me questions in the voice channel, or speak them, and we'll keep this pretty informal. Just would love to, learn a bit from you as well, and see how we can just, have a discussion about art, architecture, and all these good things. But yeah, to start off, my name is Kirk Finkel. I'm an artist and a virtual architect. Um, I am the director of architecture at the Museum of Crypto Art MoCA, and I've been in the crypto scene since about 2016. I know everyone everyone always starts off with like what month and year they got into this world, which is so funny to me. It's such a small time frame. But prior to the crypto world, um, I was an architect and urban designer, which is my background, and really got into the prospect of the metaverse early on. Was incredibly excited about what this technology, the blockchain infrastructure tech, and everything else can do for stakeholdership and ownership and access in terms of architecture and urban design. And it's really been incredible to see what what all has happened over the last few years. It's pretty mind-blowing to think about. And for me, I'm just incredibly excited about the prospect of using this technology for impact, for positive impact on how cities can be built and evolve over time. And also, I use my artistic practice as a way to kind of reflect those ideas and projects. And then very often, those artistic works manifest themselves in metaverse environments. I do a lot of work across Somnium Space, Decentraland, HyperFi, Mona, Arium I've done, and I know a lot of amazing works happen in Arium through VCA. And yeah, it's just been a pretty incredible few years, I think, for the digital arts scene. And it's going to just really evolve tremendously over the next few years and beyond. But yeah, that's a little bit about me. I can I'll send you guys my website, which I really should have updated a little bit better ahead of this discussion. But if you go to untitled.xyz, you can learn a little bit about my past projects. And I apologize, it's a little bit out of date, but as these things are. But yeah, I guess we can open it up now. If you guys have any questions, I'd love to hear from you all. If you have any questions about the metaverse world as it exists today, metaverse architecture. I do a lot of work with the Museum of Crypto Art on virtual exhibitions and virtual museums, and that's takes up most of my time at the moment. But yeah, I will open it up. If you have any questions, feel free to type them in the voice channel or share them right here. Or if you don't have questions, I can keep chatting about different things. I can always ramble. I'm happy to do that.
Hello. Hello. My name is Anton. Yeah, nice to meet you. Yeah, I actually enjoyed your chatting, but I just wanted to know like about metaverse and a little bit more because for me, even though I'm in NFT in metaverse field for some time, it's still kind of for me it's really hard to get into this 3D spaces, and I feel that they're for me they're kind of hard to explore and use, and also but I feel that they are really developing really fast. There are a lot of new new projects I've seen, and I'm really interested, like trying to get into building something 3D, or yeah, something like more immersive experience, especially since this announcement of Vision Pro happened. I feel like NFTs also can be more adopted by more people, and it can happen through this virtual spaces that we will able to use with new tools. And yeah, I just wanted to know in which direction it will develop, and how NFT actually what is this metaverses and 3D spaces? How do we use them, and how it will develop in the future? Yeah, thank you.
Of course, absolutely. Great to meet you, Anton, and excellent questions. I think it's the metaverse itself is one of those really, well, first of all, it's a very fuzzy, very noisy environment. It is so hard to navigate because everyone has their own definition of what a metaverse even is. And we're all sort of stuck on Twitter at the moment, scrolling through, trying to figure out what the different definitions are and how to get in, so to speak. It's so difficult. And so you're absolutely right in saying, it's extremely hard to navigate this stuff. And that's why I think, VCA is so important. Getting kind of an orientation is important because there's no single point of authority in any of this. This is all a decentralized kind of infrastructure, and everyone has their own definition of what a metaverse should even be. That's super exciting, I think, but also super daunting. I've had a lot of architecture friends who I've been begging to get into the scene, and I think it's really important for all architects to look at this as a new medium. It's in tandem with their physical work, they're going to be developing virtual work. It's just, I think it's just going to happen. Um, and for me, the metaverse is just everyone will tell you something different. Maybe the last person who had an AMA will tell you a different definition. My definition is the metaverse is just the next iteration of the internet. It's more immersive, it's out of this kind of square confines that we have. We're all stuck on these devices that are square, and that's a big bummer. And it impacts everything that we create. All the digital media is catered to that square. And I think we're starting to break out of that mindset, out of that algorithm, and what the metaverse will provide through these new devices like Vision Pro and Oculus, and even other devices that certainly will come out over the next couple of years. It'll change the way, it'll change the canvas. The canvas won't be square anymore, it'll be spatial. So the spatial web, I think, is something that it's certainly inevitable in my mind. I think it's certainly up for debate about what that actually will be and how it will impact us. Um, my view is all of us here right now, we are stewards of that new internet, and it's up to us to kind of guide it in a healthy and a good direction. Um, and so, yeah, for me, in terms of getting into this scene, there are a handful of groups that I think are very good and very knowledgeable and very helpful in getting oriented to what and how to build virtually. I'm going to send a couple different links here. I'm part of a group called Neon Biddle, and this is actually supported by a DAO project, but I'm going to post it. And yeah, Ivan's here. I'm a big fan of Ivan's work. I'm glad to have fellow architect here. I'm not ignoring questions. I'm simply just going to add a couple links in here. Let's see. There's Neon Biddle. There is M3, which is awesome. Let's see. Sometimes Twitter doesn't do a very good job of letting me search. But I think, these two links that I shared here, these are both groups. If you go into their Discord, M3 is incredibly active. They've been in the metaverse scene for a long time. Their entire mission is about building in the public, building in the open. M3 is very active. It has a ton of different people in it who are always posting their work. It's a little chaotic at times, but it's also amazing to see what people are working on. So M3, I think, is a wonderful forum to really learn about what the metaverse offers and how it's going to evolve. Neon Biddle is a smaller group, but they have weekly meetups on Fridays, actually at 1 o'clock. That's 1 p.m. Eastern time, which is just at the end of this call. And if anyone wants to join from that, I'll post a link and we can hop into that afterwards. Those groups, I think, I'm simply telling you how I've learned. I've learned by experimenting and hopping into these random virtual meetups and trying to figure out how to build virtually. So a lot of my meetups, I can send another one. There's Whip, which is great too. Let's see. The Whip meetup. I'm going to send this one. Whip meetup is also classic, old. It's been there forever. They started a lot in crypto voxels, and now they've moved on to HyperFi, Monoverse, all these other environments. But yeah, all of these are great. And I think all of those places, they're little meetups that I think if you just start to go to, you'll get a better sense of how to build in these places and then learn about, these are essentially workshops on how to create. You'll get to meet other builders, and it's really just kind of a social event of getting to be more comfortable with what these virtual apps offer. That's a long-winded explanation for you, Anton, but I think, those three are great, and they've helped me a tremendous amount in getting my footing in what the metaverse is and how to build within it. And yeah, they're awesome. Last one I'm going to add, this is a metaverse platform. So this is an application that is, not a meetup per se, but it's a metaverse. HyperFi is really awesome. HyperFi is you have to own the NFT to be able to use the virtual world, but it's very cool because you could just drag and drop 3D models into the browser directly and you're in a multiplayer environment. I think HyperFi is really an incredibly advanced platform, and I use it a lot in my work. So I'm a little bit biased because I just really like it. I think it's the simplest way for people to get interested and involved. But for me, Decentraland is a little bit tricky to get involved in. It's certainly way too expensive to get involved in in some cases. And I think that's a big problem all across the metaverse apps. I think virtual land is like to be totally honest, I think it's a terrible model because we already have expensive land in real life. Would we really want to replicate that virtually? That just seems like a huge disaster waiting to happen. Like I can't afford my apartment in New York as it is. Do I really want to be unable to afford an apartment in the metaverse? I don't think so. That's crazy. Anyway, I'm gonna hop to Ivan's question here. Yes, I love your work, Ivan, by the way. Huge fan of your work. So Ivan asks, I would love to have the chance to use 3D modeling and design tools I've used during my architecture practice. What would you recommend? Is there a way that you can just model something and upload it to the metaverse? I would love to create on-cyber galleries for collectors or something like that. Excellent question. Yes, you can do that. And you probably are familiar with Rhino. I'm a longtime Rhino user. I used it in my architecture practice. I can't get out of it. Uh, I just think it's a great piece of software. So I model a lot of things in Rhino, but also in Blender. And then I export GLB files out from Blender, and then you can literally drop those into a lot of different metaverse apps like on Cyber. So a GLB works in on Cyber best as it does in HyperFi. And there are a few other, I think, what else? Spatial uses GLBs. Every metaverse uses, and for those who aren't familiar in this chat, one of the biggest problems in the metaverse right now as a whole, everyone likes different file types. This is like one metaverse being a JPEG metaverse, another being a PNG metaverse, and another being like a TIFF file. It's so confusing. And that is happening right now in different metaverse apps because something like Decentraland uses GLB files. Somnium Space uses FBX files, and OnCyber uses GLBs. So it's just like, you've got all these different rules and regulations, and it's very confusing. That said, OnCyber you can use for free. You can test it for free. Uh, Spatial as well is I believe free to use. So there are some tools like OnCyber, Spatial. They're free to use. You can upload your own environment and test it out, and those use GLB files. I believe Hyperfly does have a cost to use a uh, a world, they call it, and I believe it's like 0.09 ETH or something like that. Not the best, but it's I think it's pretty powerful because you can drag and drop a GLB directly into the interface, and that's really cool. I think they have probably the easiest interface to use for that. So Evelyn asks, where do you set yourself as an artist in art history? Would it be possible to draw lines for you to traditional artists? Interesting question. Um, is it maybe where you see yourself as an artist in art history? I think um, I I would think that my work it rests kind of between art and architecture. And I think we're in a very in between growth period right now where everything is incredibly chaotic. I think the one benefit we all have is certainly that the blockchain carries a record of things that happen. So, one thing that's very valuable for this whole scene with NFTs and everything else, you have a record, a history that's embedded into the infrastructure. Um, that's something that's very interesting. I don't know if I can speak to how history will see this, but I think it will be interesting to then look back years ahead from now to see uh, what people were doing right now and what they were minting, what they were collecting, how they were logging into these apps, what they were doing. It's a really interesting resource that this is. It's a record. I do think traditional artists, you know, this is, as I said before, this is the metaverse is a new canvas. It's not the best canvas. There will never be the best canvas in my eyes. This new iteration of how we interact and engage and cooperate with one another. That's my view of how this is. So, the canvas might be a spatial canvas now, but I think it serves as another medium for artists, architects to use, to explore, to experience. Um, so it's certainly not the best. It's not the final either. There will be something beyond the metaverse that happens next. But in my eyes, I think it's something that serves as another tool, and traditional art certainly can benefit from it. It's just it's a new medium for sure. So Ivan is saying Blender, yeah, SketchUp, SketchUp classic. I think in SketchUp, there's probably a plugin or something where you can export GLB files and FBX files. I think that's entirely possible and should be able to be used. I'm a little rusty on my SketchUp skills, but I'll have to log into it and open it up and see what's feasible. So Evelyn says, super interesting as that we regard it as art. Maybe not in traditional art in one sense, right? Yeah, it's definitely. I have a lot of architecture friends who, well, they say, well, you're not practicing architecture. This isn't architecture. Architecture is physical. I said before, I really think architectural practices will have, when you're in an architecture firm, you're going to have two parts. You're going to have a physical architecture practice that builds buildings with brick and concrete and stone. And then you're going to have a virtual practice that builds with polygons and pixels and different materials. So I really believe that that's the future of where we're headed, and it might even be with something like Vision Pro, where you have all these layers. You can imagine a building will need both because it can be experienced in both realities simultaneously. So where you have a building made of brick, you will also need a skin that covers it in polygons. I'm pretty sure that's where we're headed. And I think that's kind of the reality of how cities will evolve. You're going to have two. You're going to have um, you're going to have a physical building, and then you're going to have this kind of virtual overlay that you can experience. Ivan asks, and these are great questions, by the way, guys. This is great. Um, Ivan asks, have you ever had a commission of an architectural project in the metaverse, like a client asking you to design something custom made for himself? Yes, I've had all sorts of very strange projects over the years. I've had people reach out to me to build them their mansions in the metaverse, to which I have said no. um, so I had one example, and I had this a bunch of times a couple years ago. Someone would ask, "Can you build this my house in the metaverse?" And I tend to say no to that because I don't understand why. I don't want the metaverse to be that. We should not have to replicate our buildings virtually to have them look exactly the same. There are totally different rules in the virtual world. So I think there's an opportunity to be more creative. And on top of that, it's like what I said before about the cost of metaverse plots of land. We don't want to replicate all the rules over. We don't want expensive land over there physically and over here virtually. That's no fun. So I have had clients who say, I would like this and that. I try to help them understand the benefits of why we build virtually and what that can do. There are some instances, I think, of there are a couple projects I worked on with preservation. So there is an interesting element to building virtually where you can preserve a building that was maybe lost in the physical world and make it so people can experience it virtually. I think that's very powerful, and that's very important. Um, so that's, I think, something where people are figuring out how this virtual environment is useful for them or impactful for them. I think one part of it is, well, there are different rules, so you can create different things. Another part is, well, if something was lost in the physical world, the metaverse serves as a memory. It's a way for us to kind of like rebuild our memory and put something back together. So I think there's a lot of nostalgia there. There's a lot of really interesting ways that we can kind of use it to our advantage in that respect. Um, but yeah, I've had all sorts of, so I have had architectural commissions. I've worked with people who have a lot of galleries in real life and they're looking for a virtual presence. Um, I had one really funny meeting at one point in a VR headset at Somnium Space. So I'm wearing an Oculus and I'm walking around with a client, and he's telling me, to add uh, um, barriers along the edge of this building so people don't fall off. And so we were, in a virtual world talking about railings, and I thought that was just so funny. He was right; you could just fall right off. But I never thought of that as a problem. So it's funny. Like some people are like, "Well, this should be ADA compliant," and it's still it's interesting to see what people want and what they want to be comfortable. Um, and yeah, Ivan, exactly. Like, it's a different playground, different rules. And the Apple Vision, the Vision Pro is going to open up an entirely new way for us to experience these things. Um, I think it'll be really powerful. Really curious to see how that takes shape. If anyone has any questions, you can ask them in the chat or down here too.
Hi, Kirk. My name is Rebecca, and I go by Numinol in this space. I've been trying to formulate a question for a while, and I figured maybe I'll just say some things. I think I'm sort of focusing on the question that Evelyn asked and ruminating on my own experiences in metaversal spaces. My partner is actually he was a physical designer of architectural objects and has also has been doing metaversal architecture as well. So I've been thinking about it for a while in this way. I love architecture. I love space, and I think I really do struggle with the lack of the lack of space in the way that we experience metaverses today. And it's always felt to me, at least in the circles that I'm in as a digital artist, as an attempt at a display problem. And I don't know if I feel like it's that successful as that in that way. It always sort of feels kind of forced, like, well, we experience, digital art is on screens, and so we can create screens in the metaverse to put the art on, and then it'll be kind of like a gallery. And it's always kind of felt weird to me in that way. So I don't really know if that's a question so much as just a prompt for you to sort of respond to. But I'm really enjoying hearing your perspective on this, as I think it is something that we need to really grapple with and work forward on this new canvas, as you put it.
Excellent. Yeah. Hi, Rebecca. This is awesome. I love it as a prompt. I love it as a question. I think what you said about an attempt at a display problem is so on point, and it is so clunky right now. I think what drives me crazy, and this is just sort of, we're in this growth, almost like puberty phase of the internet at the moment, where people are putting digital frames or frames in the metaverse on virtual walls, and it's like, what are we doing? This is so weird, and it's clunky, and it doesn't really, it is an attempt at a display problem, but if we're just replicating the problems we have in the real world virtually, we're not solving that problem. We're just sort of amplifying it. And I think what really drives me nuts is taking an artwork and putting it on a pure white wall gallery in the metaverse. I don't get it. Think it's just, it feels so wrong. But I've done it before. I'm guilty of it because that's what a lot of people want ultimately. But I'm trying with the architecture work that I do to build walls the wrong way, so that, and build stairs the wrong way, build doorways, windows, build them all a little bit off, so that we can at least start to break that language down into something that's a little bit different, and then recollage it, recompose it into maybe a building that looks like a building, is familiar enough for us to recognize it as a building, but it is an unbuilding. We like at Mocha, we have, what we say internally is we're an unmuseum. We would like very much not to be a museum, but we are there to display art. So how do we do that in a way that's immersive and different than something that we can just scroll through on a Twitter feed or see in a gallery on a real canvas or even a digital screen? That is a major that's a major problem that I think everyone here, we're all sort of seeking to answer that. To me, I think it is incredibly weird, and it's incredibly like silly to think that right now we're all just sort of, everyone's moving so fast, and there's so much FOMO that I think people are just going and defaulting back to what's most familiar for them, and
This is
that's white
this,
walls. Yeah.
it's really interesting, and it's really got me thinking about how important collaboration is in this process, because like as an artist, I make things for screens, for frames, right? And I think it sounds like this sort of the world that you are envisioning, that you're working towards, in order to make like an actually innovative, interesting metaversal space. The work that is shown in it has to be integrated in a more interesting, meaningful way. So do you collaborate with artists in that way? is that part of why, why your practice is both as an artist and a metaversal architect?
Great question. First, collaboration is so essential. We're way too early in all of this not to kind of like, collaborate and explore together. I think, a lot of what I do is in those older groups that I had mentioned before, those meetups. Sometimes what we do is literally all meet in HyperFi, and there's a project we're working on now called DAO Town. And literally one week, this was a few weeks ago, all of us just started adding buildings to a town together and building out different like signage, different like landscapes, different trees, different stuff. And it was just a fun exercise because it's kind of like, in architecture, you have what's called a charrette, where everyone comes together around a table and is just drawing on top of one another. I think that is what the metaverse, that's what we should strive for the metaverse to be, is this sort of collaborative drawing that we all can impact in some way. And I think a lot of them are sort of leaning towards that. I think HyperFi does a great job. Sorry to harp on HyperFi so much. I do spend a lot of time there, but it's not the only one, but it is great. Uh, it's essential, and I think a lot of like the M3 group, they do something really cool where they have almost like a mood board virtually, and they add 3D models to it. They invite people to add their own ideas, their own notes, and there's a whole virtual scene. I'll try to find it while we're talking. But it's so cool. It's a great way of collaborating and working with one another. And it's a little bit less formal than saying like, you know, you and me are collaborating on this thing. It's more of like, let's build with clay. Let's see what happens, and it's going to be open for anyone who wants to build with it. Um, that's a hope of mine for how the metaverse sort of evolves, is that it becomes this collective canvas that we can all, impact together. I'll find Downtown because it is really very cool. Let me see if I can pull that up. I'm just going to change screens. So I think, oh yeah, here it is. So it's a little, I mean, this is super clunky. And it's kind of silly because everyone just sort of dropped in their own thing. But Downtown is a very cool experiment. It's a way for everyone to have a kind of little piece, and we all just hop in and build. You can click the link, I think, through that tweet to explore it. And we might even go, if anyone wants to join me, there's a meetup happening at 1 o'clock after this. And very likely we'll hop into downtown to work on it. But yeah, oh, awesome. Like, and it's new Menel is, I think, your name, Rebecca. That's right. So very, very cool. I think those are essential questions that we all need to answer together. And if anyone tells you that they have the perfect answer and that they know what the metaverse is, they're lying, or they have too much ego or something else. There's too much of that on Twitter. It's all being forged as we speak. So I think there are too many threads out there that tell you what it is, and they're all incorrect. I'll tell you that. If I ever start doing those threads, you have to call me out on it. Um, yeah. Right. Non-egotistic architect. Yeah, it's a hard to find that. That's why I think I'm Untitled XYZ. I wanted absolutely no ego associated with this. Um, Ivan has a good question here. Knowing that you've been involved in developing projects in the metaverse as an architect, do you know any project out there that allows designers to create custom-made avatars? I've always fantasized about the idea of creating models and breaking traditional rules to be used in the metaverse. Maybe one day you can use a regular avatar that really looks like you, or maybe another day you can move moving piece of art like a blob. Yes. So avatars, really great question. And there are some amazing avatar projects happening right now. So what I was telling you before about the file type problem, about GLBs, FBXs, like every metaverse having its own file type, avatars are kind of having a renaissance right now because a lot of virtual worlds, like a lot of metaverse apps, are starting to adopt a file standard called .vrm, and I'm going to write that here. I think one project that is crazy cool is Vipe. Virtual Persona is Vipe, and they just launched. I'm trying not to shill this, although, like, to be totally honest, I minted a lot of these because um, my friends worked on this. But Vipe is really interesting because these are VRM avatars that work very quickly in metaverse apps like Hyperfy. You literally just log in and you can tap it, and then you are that character. I love what these guys have done. They've been around for a long time. I bought a refrigerator avatar from them a while back, and so sometimes I show up to meetings as a refrigerator. It's it is totally up to you. I think that's what's beautiful about, this metaverse layer, is that your identity doesn't have to be exactly what it is in real life. People can be a banana, they can be a refrigerator, they can be a blob. It doesn't. It's entirely open and self-expressive, and you can also change your avatar whenever you want. So I think that's something that is just starting to be experimented on, and I love my. I'll see if I can find my fridge character. I'll join the meeting as the fridge after if anyone wants to see that in action, but that's fun. I think in terms of building these avatars, there are ways now that you can use, let's see, Feta does this. So Emotional is an awesome, very talented guy. Emotional uses and creates VRM avatars using an environment um, an environment all his own. So he builds using these kind of like purple rat characters, and they're part of this Fediverse kind of environment, and they're super cool, all very creative, and they're all VRMs. And you can mint them on Manifold if you're familiar with Manifold. So you simply just add it in the metadata, the VRM file that can be uploaded, and very, very cool. Sorry, I'm distracted. Let's see. I'm in downtown right now and somehow underneath everything. So if you double click the spacebar, Rebecca, then you can fly. So if you're underneath things, I think you can double click spacebar, fly back up to where everything is. um, I think that might help. Sometimes that happens and then we're just floating beneath. Someone might have just changed where the spawn point is, which can happen. But um, let me know if you can teleport through the ground or not. You might have to reload it. But yeah, double space in Hyperfy allows you to fly. That should work. But yeah, Emotional's work. He does these Fediverse characters. They're all VRMs. They're all custom. There's a cool Blender plugin that you can use to customize your own VRM avatar. And yeah, it's just it just teleported through the ground. Oh man, excellent. I'm glad people are flying around in there. Hilarious. Uh, yeah, I think VRMs they're like, to me, a key part of how the metaverse is going to evolve. Everyone needs their own self-expression, their own freedom to be whoever they want to be. And I think that's one of the biggest mistakes of the meta version of the metaverse. When Facebook launched, they were like, look, you can be these characters that look kind of like cartoony versions of you. But that's not fun. I don't know, it might be fun for some people, but I'd really much rather be a refrigerator. If there's anything you take from me today, that should be the message. Um, yeah, does
I
anyone have,
absolutely agree with you. Yeah, I feel the same way. And also it's really cool that you can fly in this downtown because I just yeah tried it too. And my question was, why do I have to walk there? But then, but then Numinal asked, and you told that you can fly, and it's really awesome. Yeah, I like it. because I actually hated it that we have to walk in this decentralized land and everywhere, like you have to, like in real life, just yeah. But actually I like it a lot. Like I'm flying around this town. Really awesome. Thank you.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I totally with you on that. I think, one of the most obnoxious things about some of these metaverse platforms is you have to walk. And like, why would we do that to ourselves? Why would we limit land to being on the ground? Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. And I think as an urban designer too, I'm really frustrated by that because we're just replicating the city grid, and it doesn't, like, why would we do that? We should have, you know, castles in the sky. This should be like a Miyazaki film. We shouldn't limit ourselves to being on the ground. We should be building incredibly different. And I think that's why I'm excited to kind of like lean into platforms that allow more flexibility. Flying should be absolutely mandatory in all of these worlds. I don't even understand why most avatars look like people, to be honest. I had a friend the other day who created an avatar, and it was just a blob that followed, like, you can basically create a skeleton, and your skeleton can be attached to different polygons. So what he did was only attached a big blob to the head. So it ended up looking like a ghost, and just the head would move forward when the avatar moved forward. But the rest of the body was like flopping behind it like a ghost. And I thought that was so cool because it just looked like a flying character that was kind of wobbling around. Um, and yeah, we don't need legs in the metaverse. We don't need legs. All this leg gate stuff with Meta was so funny. Uh, and yeah, Ivan's saying, should be completely customizable. I agree. I think it should be, these virtual environments, we're leaning towards them being more and more customizable. It's our own internet. It's our own version of the internet. And that's what's so exciting about it. We can create, it's like a collective consciousness experiment. We are imparting our own imagination onto this world, and it's exciting to see what other people are imagining. I think it's that simple.
Uh, Also, I would like to ask you uh, about uh, about artworks in this in metaverse, because uh, I have an impression that sometimes there is no actual space for that is created uh, for displaying digital art. Yeah, we have this digital walls and yeah, everything is hanging, but it's all to me it's all always like afterthought. I feel like these metaverse spaces, they are created as an idea of this space, and then the people try to connect them with NFTs and create some kind of museum, uh, and yeah, so and also, for example, on cyber, they still don't play a real-time animation that is made with code. Like it doesn't display it. Last time I tried it, so yeah, I would like to know what how do you see this, and also maybe you have some kind of maybe you have some uh, maybe you know where it was realized as some place that is called NFT museum in metaverse that you like. So yeah, thank you.
Oh, of course, great question. I think, I am a little bit biased. A lot of my work with the Museum of Crypto Art is about figuring out new ways to experience digital art and new ways to curate digital art. One project that I've been working on for a long time is called Rooms. I just posted a link here. I believe, so I'm still working on this website, so I apologize if it's a little funky, but you should be able to click on any one of these images and then experience it in Hyperfi. And so each one of these is a virtual museum that's also a 3D NFT that you can outfit with art, and you can work with people to collaborate on an exhibition and things like that. It's still, to your point, it's still early on because we can't, you know, I don't have a way of coding in live generative artworks to be reactive in that kind of a scene. But it is a cool first step, I think. And a lot of these platforms like on Cyber, they're taking these first steps of creating these immersive environments. But I do think the first step typically has been like, uh, let's put a square on a wall. And I think I'm guilty of that. Like a lot of these virtual galleries that you'll see in that link, they are that. I just try to make the building weird enough that maybe we can start to ask questions about it. But my goal looking ahead is create more immersive experiences around art that aren't limited to just having an artwork hanging on a wall. I think that is something that we don't need to replicate and something we can all do better. And if you and I, all of us here, if we push these platforms to think differently about art, if we ask for new features, if we ask for, new things to happen, those changes will happen. We're all stakeholders in all of this, and it's up to us to kind of guide the direction of this technology so that we don't mirror exactly what we already have. We don't want just a digital uh, uh, counterpart that's exactly the same. All of us, I think, should be pushing these apps that are developers building these wonderful things. We should make it a more kind of collaborative experience where we all are building and seeking out new things that challenge what we have already. Ivan has a question here. Uh, I'm pretty sure the answer is yes, but I'm not that familiar with the subject. Can you utilize your 3D NFTs in any of these metaverse platforms? And how much can you interact with them there in case that's possible? Ooh, yes. So let me find. So rooms are definitely, so rooms are 3D NFTs. Let me show you. It's funny that all of these things have links all over the place. It's like, well, this isn't, it's so difficult to find everything. It's so funny. Let's see. Of course, OpenSea is stalling for me, but let me find a project that I just worked on that I dropped not too long ago. Is called ARCs. So these are 3D NFTs. And the ARCs project is a modular collection of architecture that are each of one of these is a 3D NFT. It can be kind of loaded into metaverse apps and then connected with themselves or another arc in the collection. So if you scroll down in that thread, these are 3D NFTs that are meant to be kind of like virtual pavilions that you can mix and match and create kind of weird buildings with. And if you scroll down in the thread there, you can see a couple visuals of them being used as these modular building blocks. A lot of my work revolves around modular architecture. And I really, really think there's something there that I just want to explore more and more about collectability, customization, and having a 3D NFT that you can really use in different ways. So yeah, it's super fun. This project took me a long time to put together because each one of these was made by hand. I don't have the skill set to do generative work really. So this took a while and it was very technical at trying to figure out the right scale for this to work. But in Hyperfi, you can load these in directly and you can see in the videos. It's very cool how they work. But yeah, I think stuff like that, we need more of what you're saying. We need more ways that we can flexibly use 3D NFTs in virtual apps, metaverse apps. And I don't think there's enough customization yet. I think we're very far away still from having all those features in place. But if we ask them for things, honestly, if you go to the HyperFi Discord and you just ask them for a feature, they might build it. Like it's literally, it's one guy on that team, opposed to something like, you know, a lot of these like Decentraland is hundreds of people. So some of these platforms are a lot smaller and a little bit easier to connect with the team that's building. And I've always enjoyed that more because it feels more intimate and you can request features and have them done. Does anyone have, we're approaching the 1 hour mark. Are there any last questions here? Oh, yes. Paul Duco, you asked if you could drop your GLBs into HyperFi. You do have to be logged in and you do have to have permission in case you don't own the world that you're tapped into. And I'll tell you what, I can log in to one now. Let me just log into HyperFi. I'm going to pull up a scene for these last few minutes. And if you guys want, I'll just give you permission and you can build whatever you like. Let's see. Let's see. I'll pull this one up. Any way to try building like a sandbox or something? So I would love for HyperFi to have a sandbox. They don't have one yet. They do have an actually they do have an SDK that you might be able to interact with if you're more technical. I would check their documentation on their website, but I believe you still need access to a world. I'm happy to give, if any of you want to tinker with this stuff, let me know. And if you send me your ETH address, I'll just give you access so you can build whatever you like. Let me load this world really quick. It's a little slow because I have too many tabs open. Let's see. Load in the next minute. I will follow up in the chat. And if you guys send me your ETH addresses, I'll give you builder permissions in world. And so each of you can drag and drop and make stuff, whatever you like, in a space. So you can test out GLBs, load them in, walk around them, change the lighting. Honestly, I don't think there's any platform that's easier to do that in than HyperFi because it's all in browser and very cool. So I'll send that because my computer's acting up. It doesn't like too many tabs. So Ivan says, big fan. Yes, you are. Your work is beautifully modular, super cool. Huge fan of your work. And you're saying I'm creating a library of frame-by-frame animations, 2D that can be stacked and ooh, very nice. I don't know if you've seen it, but I need to see this. Oh, this is cool. I've seen, oh man, this is great. MoMA blocks, love it. I need to explore this a little bit more. Yeah, 2.5D, definitely. You should totally check that out. Oh, if you haven't actually, you should check out, do you guys know async art? Async art is super cool. And it allows you to basically build layers on a composition. And from there, you can basically, if you have, I did a modular project on async art a while back, and you can basically have different building blocks that can change over time. If someone owns a layer on async art, if someone's collected it, they can basically change that layer, and then you have a big sort of collaborative artwork. Let me see if my computer does not like change today. Let's see. Async art, here we go. Here's the link. This is so cool. I'm sorry I haven't reacted appropriately with emojis to all of your questions, but all of these questions are amazing. Really, really great discussion, guys. Are there any last questions before I can drop a link to where I'm headed after this if anyone wants to join me in HyperFi? I'll be going to the Neon Biddle meetup after this to just check in and then I'll probably only be there for a few minutes. But yeah, guys, amazing questions. Like really good discussion today. And yeah, let's keep in touch. If you ever have questions, feel free to tag me in this Discord or DM me, whatever you like. And I'll follow up later today with a link to a Hyperfy space. And if you send me your ETH address, which I'll ask for when I post it, we can all build in a world together and test these things out. Because I wish it didn't cost 0.09 ETH to get them, but they are a startup and they're trying to make their way. Cool, guys.